I'm sitting here. I gotta get these bars on my chest, bro. I gotta get these bars on my chest, bro. I can't even front. Look, the social media quarterbacks, I don't like it. Them Herbert QB's not my type. No, throwing big sixes all day and night. But them Dolphins, yeah, they gon' take flight. And don't even try to mention about the Chargers, D. I know they sorry, but that's not the issue. At the end of the game, Herbert, you don't need them tissues. Along with Chargers fans, because I don't think highly. The number one crier is going to be Marcellus Wiley. Damn. Social media quarterbacks, I don't like it. Them Herbert QB's not my type. Nope. Throwing pick sixes all day and night. But them Dolphins, yeah, they gon' take flight. Alright?
Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam, and Emmanuel Acho. It's the director. Chargers fans, how about them Chargers last night, baby? Let's go! In a game that nobody gave us a chance, the Chargers shocked the world with an upset over the Miami Dolphins, and man, was it a good game. The Chargers pounced themselves some Tua, pounced themselves some Dolphins. It was an awesome win, and we're going to talk all about it. But first off, a couple announcements. First off, giveaway time. We are giving away 3 jerseys this month, starting with this Justin Herbert jersey. Going to one of my subscribers. All you got to do for this is hit up the link in the description, follow the instructions there. Very simple. And make sure you're subbed. Only subs can win. Next, we've got this Khalil Mack jersey going to one of my crew members. All you got to do to be entered for this, be a member of my crew. That's it. It's a special thanks from me to you guys. And then finally, we've got our underdog fantasy giveaway for a Keenan Allen jersey. Just go ahead and hit the link in the description, follow that tweet, retweet it, comment, all that kind of stuff to be entered for this Keenan Allen. Special thanks to Underdog Fantasy for putting this one on. Make sure to use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100 when signing up for Underdog Fantasy. With that, guys, hope you liked the opener. Let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers versus Dolphins social media quarterback post-game report. Let's jump right into it, baby. Relive all the madness that we experienced yesterday. Such a fun game. We knew this one would be fun, but honestly, a lot of things kind of came out of left field when it came to the defense, when it came to individual player effort, when it came to the coaching in some aspects from, we'll say, Staley, not Lombardi. Definitely a very fun one to watch, and ultimately such an important game for keeping the Chargers' playoff hopes alive. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about the playoffs as well, which, a little spoiler alert, the Chargers looking really good all of a sudden. So let's jump into our first topic, this one being Herbert versus Tua, the epic conclusion. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I said this in my preview video. I'll say it again. I was never really a fan of this debate because, you know, I do love Tua Tagaloa. I'm a fan of his. And I do hope that he has a great career going forward, of which I'm pretty confident he will be. The debate itself is dumb. But as much as I do love Tua Tagaloa, I do have to say the answer here is actually super, super obvious. Justin Herbert is the quarterback that stands tall. And wow, did Justin Herbert deliver on Sunday? 367 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions. And I think, you know, a lot of times people might get, I don't know, not confused, but just a little focused on the stats. Of course, Justin Herbert, very much so, one of the best, if not the best, statistic quarterback in the NFL in its history in their first 3 seasons, but as well as what Justin Herbert does individually in game to provide a better chance at victory. Justin Herbert and his individual effort kept the Chargers in this game several times on Sunday. If it weren't for Justin Herbert and his undoubtable talent, generational talent, the Chargers may drop this one. As a matter of fact, I don't know if they keep up very much with this one because the Dolphins, certainly a great team. Maybe it didn't look quite on par this week, but Justin Herbert gives you a better chance than almost any other quarterback in the NFL. So bravo to Justin Herbert, silencing the doubters. This video coming out a little bit late because I had to put my due diligence into the opener this morning. Yeah. We had to make sure our voices were heard in defending Justin Herbert. And great game by him, man. Feels very good to see number 10 finally get that recognition, especially in this particular debate, which, again, I view as dumb. But he definitely proved himself out there in the lights of Sunday Night Football. On the other hand, though, we did have Tua. 145 yards and a touchdown. I do have to add to that, if Michael Davis doesn't trip on that play to Tyreek Hill, we're looking at something closer to 85 yards and no score. That is absolutely absurd to me. Tua Tagaloa is still a great quarterback in my mind. Something is off with him. I think I heard something about an injury maybe last week that's still lingering. Either way, Tua did not look the same this week at all. But I also have to give a nod to the defense. The defense was absolutely spectacular because it's not just Tua that we're going up against. It's Tyreek Hill. It's Jalen Waddle. It's Mike Gesicki. It's a lot of very talented offensive weapons on the Dolphins offense, honestly. And honestly, I do believe that the Chargers defense shocked almost every Chargers fan out there, even with Tua having a pretty poor game. But listen, I think Tua in the long run, he's going to be great. But if Herbert is being compared to another quarterback, I sure as heck hope that Dolphins fans understand where we stand here. I know a lot of them may be a little bit salty, considering that, yeah, they could have had Justin Herbert with a little bit more foresight from their scouting department. But either way, Justin Herbert is the winner of this debate. And if the Chargers, additionally, if they can learn to unleash him going forward, first by canning Joe Lombardi, the league is in serious trouble because even in this game, I feel like Justin Herbert should have had another touchdown or two. Herbert is the undoubtable better quarterback in this debate, but I do wish Tua well. Next up, let's talk about Big Mike, number 81. I said Mike Williams would have a good day, did I not? And he did for sure. Mike has really transformed into one of the best playmakers in the league. You guys know that play I'm talking about. I'm going to say that Mike Williams play, and half of you guys are going to understand what I'm talking about. That play on the outside against Xavier Howard, where Xavier had him completely bodied out. I thought there was no chance that pass was going to be completed. And somehow, Mike Williams jumps over Xavier Howard, bodying him out and coming down with a spectacular catch to keep that drive alive. And ultimately, I think we may have scored on that drive. Either way, maybe we didn't on that one. I don't remember. Either way, Mike Williams, absolutely stupendous, transforming again into one of the biggest playmakers in the league, one of the most lethal threats at wide receiver. And this just goes to show how lethal this offense can be when they have their wide receivers on the field. Yes, we still need a deep threat. Yes, the Chargers offensive line isn't in the best state. But when Justin Herbert has guys like Mike Williams available, yards are going to be put up and points are going to be scored. Sure, I think the Chargers did not score enough points to justify the yards at all. I think over 400 yards of total offense, one touchdown through the air is not enough. And that has a lot to do with the red zone play calling. But Mike Williams is going to make the difference either way. Either getting to the red zone or even scoring in the red zone. He did have himself a score there. One of those nice high point passes from Justin Herbert. He's one of those all-around great wide receivers that as he continues to develop his route running and his availability and getting open, is just going to become that much more better in the NFL. And I do think fans are starting to know us. Mike Williams has had a bit of we'll say a prolonged blossoming into the NFL in terms of his, true talent. But now this former Clemson player is finally starting to prove why the Chargers saw so much potential for him in the first round in 2017, I do believe. 116 yards, a touchdown. This is just the beginning for Big Mike Williams. Next up, a nod to number 30, Austin Eckler. Again, we knew Austin Eckler was going to have a good day, and he's becoming so consistent, it's insane. Absolutely the most incredible, perfect fantasy running back you could ask for this season because the dude is just so consistent no matter the opponent. The defensive line of the Miami Dolphins, one that I absolutely respect. They're very good. Of course, you guys saw Christian Wilkins all day long just devouring our offensive line. It's very tough to run on this team, but despite that, I think Austin Eckler still put up close to 50 yards, which is respectable. But once again, his production coming through the air more than makes up for any sort of lack of production on the ground, and he's been fantastic. I don't know what more to say about him. Justin Herbert in this offense with Lombardi that we're finding so much difficulty pushing the ball downfield. Having Eckler available underneath will always give the Chargers a good shot at converting on 3rd and long, 2nd and long, finding a way to move or to gain yards despite not seeing a lot of available wide receivers in the intermediate or deep parts of the field. So Austin Eckler, the kind of weapon that can take a short pass all the way to the house. He puts up another big day, 100 yards and a touchdown, and he's becoming one of the most consistent Chargers running backs we've seen in a very, very long time. Now, I also wanted us to name this segment Eckler QB1 because, again, I just had to herald out that play, dudes. I don't know if you guys saw the clip on Twitter, but literally I was losing my mind. There was a play in which Justin Herbert starts motioning to wide receiver. Director's in the chat losing his brains, and here comes Austin Eckler in the Wildcat to keep and carry for, I think it was a 1st down on that play. Haven't seen something like that since the days of LaDainian and Tomlinson. Super cool to see Eckler QB1. Next up, this is probably where we're going to get to one of the most shocking aspects of this entire game, the defense. ASJ, Alohi, Davis, and the baller DBs. This may have been one of the best, I think this is the best defensive performance that we've seen in 2022. And it comes by the talent and the effort of so many different players all over the DB. We're going to start with the DBs. Let's actually start with Alohi Gilman. Alohi Gilman, this may have been his best game ever, starting in the very first defensive drive for the Chargers, in which I think Tua targeted a Tyreek Hill on the sideline. Incomplete. Alohi Gilman right there, step for step, with the fastest, maybe the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. That's pretty impressive, dudes. That's pretty impressive. Not to mention, I do feel like it kind of set a tone. And it's one of those rare plays where the tone is set. Watch out, Tua. It's going to be a long day. And Alohi Gilman, at that first play, made a statement. And then he sustained that through the entire day, dude. I don't know how many tackles and passes defended, et cetera, but he was just unbelievable on Sunday. And again, just one of those players that stepped up in the absence of a Derwin James. Alohi deserves a lot of credit. Additionally, these two guys right here, man. You're looking at Asante Samuel Jr. and Jasir Taylor. Jasir Taylor, the rookie, finally gets an opportunity in lieu of the injured Bryce Callahan. The dude was insane. Playing primarily in the nickel, the dude was just massively impactful to the Chargers defense, showing off the speed, superb tackling, and honestly, the awareness, the placement, just everything about Jasir Taylor is starting to look like it's providing decent upside, and that's something great to see, especially with Chargers fans maybe a little bit weary of what's going on with our 3rd-round pick in JT Woods. We can at least breathe a little bit easy knowing that number 36, Jasir Taylor, is looking pretty good out there. As one of the later round values for the Chargers. Lastly, a big nod to Asante Samuel Jr. and Michael Davis. Asante Samuel Jr. definitely stepping up into that Chargers cornerback 1 role, especially with J.C. Jackson out of the picture right now. He's been fantastic for the Bolts all season long. And then Michael Davis. Talk about a bounce back story this season. A lot of us were talking about Chargers maybe cutting him next season to save a bit in cap space, having a really rough 2021. Here he is in 2022, keeping up with Tyreek Hill of all players and having a spectacular day. Sure, the Chargers do have 11 games versus Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has only eclipsed 100 yards twice in that time, which is also very shocking. But I feel like the experience that Michael Davis brought to the table and his reps in the past versus Tyreek Hill really paid dividends this game, and he's been stepping up into one of the better cornerbacks on this roster. So good for all the DBs, man. A very good outing. Not to Nasir Adderley as well, who had a pretty decent day. Next up, this next segment might spark a little bit of a debate, and that's okay, man. This next segment called Hope for Staley. This is what I'm most impressed by, the defense, right? And this is what we were hoping to see from Brandon Staley. Even if the offense took some time to catch up, even though we were really hoping to see someone unleash a Justin Herbert, we had hopes that Brandon Staley could implement a very nice defensive scheme. And for the most part, last season it was okay. This season it's been a train wreck, a dumpster fire. Nothing like what we were hoping to see. Well, this game gave me a spark of hope that we may see something in those regards in terms of the Chargers turning a corner defensively. This predominantly man defense, mixed in with some zone, a bit of a hybrid, right, was phenomenal. Sure, the pressure was lacking, but Bosa's going to return soon. And if the Chargers decide to stick with what I saw on Sunday, that defense and that scheme and that system is going to work very, very well. The coverage was outstanding, and the players fit the mold perfectly. You talk about the Chargers DBs right now having a good game. All of these guys, for the most part, you would maybe identify as a man coverage defensive back. Certainly Asante Samuel Jr., Jasir Taylor, right? Even some of our safeties can very much so be trusted in man coverage. And the Chargers really put a lot of faith in these players to execute on that plan this week, and they did very much so that. Very, very impressive. And if this is a sign of things to come, right? If we're going to see a lot more of this going forward, using your players' strengths to your advantages, not trying to force, a square peg in a round hole, I think there's some hope that Brandon Staley could turn a corner as a head coach as well. Certainly as a defensive coordinator, as he does call the defensive plays. Staley may even win favor with a lot of fans going forward. Do I want Sean Payton still? That's probably going to be a big question that a lot of people are asking. Like, director, after one game, are you out on Sean Payton? Nah, I'm still very much so in on Sean Payton. A different situation. I think it's just an opportunity the Chargers can't pass up. But in the event that doesn't happen and the Chargers decide to go another year in with Brandon Staley, games like this do give me hope. Please change coordinators. Obviously, that's going to be a big part other than the special teams guy. But build on this. Build on this. It worked flawlessly versus a very lethal offense in the league in the Miami Dolphins. So there is hope for Staley. And you know what? I'm glad to see it. I'm not out on Payton, but I'm glad to see Brandon Staley giving me some hope. This also gives me hope for J.C. Jackson. That's what this next segment, a very light segment's about. Hope for J.C. Jackson. And this is what I was talking about in terms of the Chargers DBs. Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr., maybe a little less Michael Davis, Bryce Callahan certainly, and then most certainly J.C. Jackson. These are predominantly man corners. And the Chargers have just not been running enough man this season. I feel like the plan coming into the year was let's be a predominantly man defense and let Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack just go ham with good coverage. And that kind of fell apart. Joey Bosa gets injured, J.C. Jackson gets injured. The Chargers, even in that time, weren't calling a lot of man coverage. Well, now you know what? They are. And it just gives me so much hope for J.C. Jackson in his return. I understand that the particular injury that he suffered is very hard to come back from, but that doesn't change my mind in the talent of J.C. Jackson. I'm not done. I know a lot of fans were very disappointed. A lot of fans probably writing him off at this point. But if the Chargers continue doing what they did yesterday, I think when J.C. returns, he's going to be very much more comfortable. And he's going to fit this system so much better. And I do think we're going to start to see a nice return on investment for number 27. I got hope for him, man. That system, that plan, that game plan that we went into yesterday, it gives me a lot of hope for number 27. Next up, Trank and K9 have a day. Good for the linebackers, huh? Both of these guys would end the night with grades over 80, right? Which is insane. I think K9 had something like an 88.6. Absurd. And both held up very fantastic in coverage, which, again, the Chargers, maybe over the middle, have been very weak versus the run especially, but even in coverage. Both these guys were fantastic. Especially, again, crazy enough, K9 Kenneth Murray. He looked amazing. And what the biggest thing I was proud of this duo for was their effort to hold down the fort while Derwin was away. Because normally, you're going to see a lot of reps for Derwin James over the middle playing linebacker. Their contributions were massive in containment versus the run, in coverage. We had to give a tip of the hat to the linebackers, 49 and 9 in the middle of that field. Good day for Trank and K9. Next up, we have a lot to get through. I don't want this video to be too long today. Another nod, man. 3 amazing Chargers on that defensive line on Sunday. Morgan Fox, Fayoko, and Van Noy. Now we'll start with Morgan Fox, who was perhaps the best pass rusher of the day for the Bolts. It was really tough to see Khalil Mack struggling to get free. That's okay, because the other Chargers certainly stepped up. And maybe Khalil Mack and getting double, maybe even triple teamed at some points, helped these guys get a little bit more free. And they took full advantage of those opportunities. Morgan Fox was the definition of consistent. Always in the face of Tua Tagaloa. Finding a way to generate sacks and tackles for loss, he was fantastic. A disruptor. And that's what we need from the interior. Next, we had Kyle Van Noy, who also stepped up big time. He got his first sack of the season for the Chargers. I know we're probably cutting it a little bit close in terms of timing at this point of the season, but good for Kyle Van Noy. Against, I do believe, his former team, the Miami Dolphins, right? Very, very nice performance there. A sack and I think 2 tackles for loss. Very, very nice. Fayoko will close with him, who's not pictured here. He was also very stellar versus the run, which also begs the question, Chargers, why haven't we been using this guy way more often the last couple of seasons? He's been fantastic. So great day for those three. Let's talk about a little things that maybe concern me a little bit to help close out this video. We're going to end with the playoff hopes, okay, guys? So don't worry, we'll end on a high note. But a couple of things to note that the Chargers should work on, as we are now certainly still alive for the postseason and need to clean some stuff up. First off, the offensive line. A concern for the Bolts going forward is going to be their protection, right? Justin Herbert is struggling to find time in the pocket, and that's not good, man. We're going up against some decent pass rushers in the next couple of weeks. I think that Denver Broncos defense is the one I'm most worried about. No, scratch that. Aaron Donald and the Rams defense is what I'm most worried about. The Chargers are going to have to find a way to keep their quarterback upright. Now, luckily, at some point, Lombardi did kind of wake up and allow Justin Herbert to scramble a little bit. Not as often as Chargers fans were hoping. And not scramble for yards, but scramble to buy time, right? I just feel like we could have seen a lot more. Luckily, we did see a little bit of that. And ultimately, it was the right decision, the right call. If the offensive line can't stand up and stand tall, Justin Herbert's going to have to find a way to generate a little bit more time for his receivers to get open. And he went bananas. Again, to the tune of 367 yards. That's working for now. But the Chargers got to find a way to get this offensive line back in sync to generate a little bit more time in the pocket for Justin Herbert. Additionally, the run blocking was especially bad as well. I know a lot of Chargers fans were like, why are we continuing to running the ball? It's not working. Well, part of it not working is the offensive line not providing any space. Lindsley, Zion, everyone really couldn't find space on Sunday. Christian Wilkins was all over the Bolts all night long. Hopefully we see this unit return to form soon. Maybe even with Rashawn Slater. Who knows? There's whispers that he could return around the time of the playoffs. But we got to keep an eye on that offensive line. Next up, we could not go through this whole video without mentioning the luck of the Bolts. That was terrible, but that's what we're going to call this segment, the luck of the Bolts. You can't talk about this game without discussing that insane amount of bad luck. I have never seen anything like what I had witnessed with the fumble recovery for a touchdown by Tyreek Hill. You guys remember that? Chargers get in there. I think it was Drew Tranquil who tore the ball out of Raheem Mostert's grip, and we're all celebrating aside. Oh, that's a fumble, Chargers ball, Chargers ball. Then all of a sudden, I see Tyreek Hill pop out of the huddle or out of the herd of players and sprint all the way out for a touchdown. We're all sitting here like, can he move the ball forward? What's going on? What are the rules here? That seems so obscure. How is this possible? How is this legal? And it turns out because the ball traveled a little bit far back before Tyreek Hill picked it up and he was never touched, that it was a legitimate score. Life of a Chargers fan, am I right? I don't know, dudes. It just seems fumble-rooski, all that kind of stuff, it's back. Hopefully the Chargers don't see that kind of luck in the future. We're going to certainly need it if we're trying to make it into the postseason. But that's something you cannot talk about this game without mentioning. One of the only big explosive plays for the Dolphins this week. I think they only had two, both at the hands of Tyreek Hill, which was expected. But again, a bit of a bad luck on both of those. The fumble recovery, which is insane, and then the trip up by Michael Davis, which did result in the other Tyreek Hill touchdown. Additionally, the thing that really made me upset this game was the officiating. We don't go crazy on the officiating unless it's absolutely warranted, like that game versus Kansas City early in the year, the one that we should have won. This game was, in its own way, a little bit frustrating as well, right? It happens every week. I've kind of come to accept it, but come on, man. How many intentional groundings could we see? I think there was a point where I was like, dude, that's the definition of intentional grounding. What's going on? What are these flags used for other than to jam up the butts of Chargers fans? Then they finally called it and we calmed down, but that would have been the second one. There's a lot of flags that didn't happen that should have happened against Tua and the Dolphins. Either way, the Chargers stepped up. They overcame. We're hoping that the bad luck starts to subside a little bit here soon because the Chargers, they're not going to need any of that going into their last couple of games of the year. One of the final things here too, Lombardi is done. I couldn't not mention him in this video. A win is a win. The team was amazing. But this is despite Joe Lombardi's play calling. Let me be clear, okay? It was putrid on Sunday. Again, over 400 yards. The Chargers should have had at least 30 points. They ended the night with 23. Again, it was enough for the win. That was great. But especially, I have to point out, our red zone defense was absolutely horrible. I think we counted something like 5 screens in the red zone. You cannot do that. We don't like screens in the intermediate part of or in the middle part of the field. We don't like screens to open drives. We certainly don't like screens in the red zone. And for some reason, Lombardi just can't quit it. So I would just say this. It's unacceptable. I expect Lombardi to be gone by the end of the year. And if at this point the Chargers are very much so in play for the postseason, I would make it a bit sooner if I'm being honest. How much could it hurt, right? What if next week the Chargers rolled out with Shane Day, right? And they had this system in place where it's all about pushing that ball downfield with Justin Herbert, the big arm quarterback, buying time by scrambling out of the pocket, et cetera, et cetera. I think a lot of us would lose our minds, right? Especially if it works. If it doesn't work and he needs some more time to fine-tune it, what's the worst that could happen? We go back to the Lombardi, short dink and dunk sort of system we've been seeing. I don't know, man. I think in the long run, even though it's a little bit risky, I feel better about moving on from Lombardi now than I would at the end of the year, which kind of tells you how bad the play calling has been from Lombardi at this point. One of the last things here before we get into the playoff stuff, I do want to recognize the situation for Tua Tagaloa, okay? Like I said at the top of the video, I like Tua. I really do. And I'm being honest when I say that. If you guys go back and you see my 2020, draft preparation videos and even during the draft and all that kind of stuff, you guys will know I was a big Tua Tagaloa fan. So much so that I wanted him on the Chargers, right? When we got Justin Herbert, of course, in the long run, we were all like, thank God the Chargers decided to go 10 instead of 1. And thank God the Miami Dolphins certainly played a hand in helping that out. But I'm a fan of Tua. What we saw on Sunday, I don't know if I consider that Tua so much, right? I feel like he was off. And again, we heard something about an injury, this and that. But Tua, whether it be in the Sunday Night Lights, whether it be in the pressure of the matchup, et cetera, he just did not find a rhythm. It did not feel like that we were playing Tua. So honestly, if I'm being honest as a Chargers fan, I look forward to the rematch at some point. I would like to see Tua maybe at full strength and watch Justin Herbert continue to prove his dominance, but still had to point out that Tua looked very off that night, okay? All right, so let's close this video out with this segment. The Chargers' playoff hopes are very much so alive. As of the end of regulation last night, the Chargers do currently hold the 7th seed in the AFC. Isn't that fantastic? And the Chargers' chances of maintaining that, I would say, are pretty dang high. Currently, the Chargers' playoff hopes are hovering around 55%. That's pretty good, right? And let's take a look at our next two opponents. We're going to be playing the Titans and the Colts. If we go 1-1 versus the Colts and or Titans, that keeps us around 50%. But let's say the Chargers, in some way, shape, or form, defeat the Titans and the Colts, both those AFC opponents, conference opponents. The Chargers' chances jump up to above 90%. And I think the Chargers are capable of this. Remember, our remaining schedule, we face the Titans, the Colts, the Rams, and the Broncos. Titans, outside of Derrick Henry, I think we can handle them. Now, Derrick Henry alone could win that game. I'm very much so aware of that, but I think the Chargers have a decent chance at winning that game. The Colts, shell of their former selves. The Matt Ryan experiment's not working. I think the Chargers have a decent shot at that. The Rams, also a shell of their former selves. Unless the Baker Mayfield experiment continues to work out for them, I think the Chargers have a very good shot at winning their game in Los Angeles to put their flag on the territory there. And then finally, the Broncos. And we've seen the Broncos. We know the Broncos. The Broncos, a lot of the times I get nervous about a trap game scenario. I still kind of am just a little bit, but the Broncos are so bad. I feel very confident about that game. So what does that mean? I feel like the Chargers, if I'm very confident in 4 of these games, can they win 3 of them? I do think they can. We have a legitimate shot to go 10-7. Playoff hopes are very much so alive. I can't rule out 11-6 as well, or 11-6 as well. But what we also have to remember, too, is that the Chargers, they're going to be facing what? In the hunt, you're just going to see up there the Jets and the New England Patriots. Those are going to be the 2 main teams that we have to watch out for. And those 2 teams, I'll tell you right now, they have some brutal schedules to close out the season. So the Chargers have put themselves in a very nice spot to try and close out the season and grab a postseason appearance. The last thing I'll mention in terms of that, because again, maybe I'm being too optimistic. I don't think so at this point. The Chargers, behind needing a couple of wins versus a softer schedule, behind their opponents, their competing teams having brutal schedules, they also have one serious advantage. And that's that they're getting Joey Bosa and Derwin James back next week. We may even see a Rashawn Slater return at some point. The Chargers are getting stronger as the schedule gets softer and the opponents' schedules get tougher. You add all that up, the Chargers have a really good shot at the postseason. We'll talk more about this maybe in an individual video a little bit later this week, okay? But the bottom line of this video today, man, Chargers are very much so in it. And this is the time the Chargers certainly need to sort some things out, figure out the offense a little bit, try and get healthy, but really hit the ground running for the next couple of weeks. Because the Chargers, they legitimately should go to the playoffs this year. If they don't, it's by their own detriment, and maybe Joe Lombardi. Nobody gave us a chance this game. I told the Chargers fans that I think the Dolphins maybe score, in and around 40 points this week. I did have us winning, thinking that we could overcome it. Maybe Justin Herbert goes off script and leaves Lombardi in the dust and puts up, 30-something points of his own, 36. I did believe the Chargers could win this game, but I thought it was going to be a much more offensive performance by both teams. Outside of that, you take a look. You guys saw the opener. I think every single analyst went against the Chargers. Everybody. Nobody gave them a shot, and the Chargers stepped up. And this proved to me, man, that despite the bumpy start, the bumpy year, the lack of luck, the injuries, all of the things that have depressed Chargers fans throughout the season, despite all of that, the Chargers are still here, and they have a good shot at doing this. And this has really brought a new life and excitement for the rest of the year for me. Behind Big Mike, behind Justin Herbert, obviously, Austin Eckler, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen, Asante Samuel Jr., all the amazing Chargers on this team, they are built to compete in the postseason. And I believe they're going to do it. You guys in the comment section below, I want to know your new record prediction for the Chargers. Again, we're facing the Titans, the Colts, the Rams, and the Broncos. They are currently 7-6. Where do you think the Chargers end the season at this point? I'm going to say 10-7, but I'm not going to rule out 11-6 either. You guys let me know in the comment section. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to Emmanuel Ocho for providing solid source material for our opening this week. And thank you to the Bolt fan for showing up yesterday for one of the best, I would say, streams we've had in a long time. It was certainly a good time seeing all the Bolt fam in there cheering, watching the Chargers come in and win this game. No one expected us to. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll catch you guys next time. Hit up the like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this content. We'll catch you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Social media quarterback. Sure, Acho.